Hello, my dear students. Welcome you all to Sri Jain Rank Zone classes. I'm your mentor and your friend for the subject biology, and I will be taking the zoology part, that is animal science. My dear students, today we are going to start with a very important topic of human physiology, that is respiratory system, which includes breathing and exchange of gases. Okay, so let us start with the topic human respiratory system or breathing and exchange of gases. Respiration. Respiration is the oxidation of nutrients. It is considered, or it is known as oxidation of nutrients in the living cells to release energy for biological work. It is the process by which oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is given out. Respiration is the oxidation of nutrients, mean it is a biochemical process. It is a biochemical process. It is the oxidation of nutrients in the living cells to release energy for biological work. It is a process by which oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is given out. Okay. So it includes basically two. One is the physical process of respiration is known as breathing. Of respiration is known as breathing. Is known as breathing. Okay. So breathing is a physical process. Okay. And when we talk about respiration, it includes external and internal. External respiration is breathing, that is a physical process, and internal respiration is a biochemical process. Okay, so the process of respiration is taken out in following steps. The first is pulmonary ventilation. The first process, pulmonary ventilation or breathing, is the inspiration, that is inflow, and expiration, that is outflow of air between the atmosphere and the lungs. So pulmonary ventilation is the first process. Pulmonary means pulmo means lung. Ventilation is known as breathing. It is the inspiration, that is inflow, and the expiration, that is outflow of air between the atmosphere and the lungs. Second is the external or pulmonary respiration. This is the exchange of gases between the air sacs of the lungs, that is alveoli, and the blood in the pulmonary capillaries. The blood gains O2 and losses CO2. First is pulmonary ventilation, in which at the level of lungs, the flow of air is, it is it takes place. The external respiration or pulmonary respiration at the level of alveoli, the air or the exchange of gases takes place. The blood gains O2 and losses CO2. And the third is internal or tissue respiration, also known as cellular respiration. Also known as cellular respiration. It is the exchange of gases between the blood and systemic capillaries and the tissue cells is known as internal respiration. The blood loses O2 and gains CO2 within the cells. The metabolic reactions that consume O2 and give off CO2 during production of ATP are termed as cellular respiration. Okay. The blood, it basically having hemoglobin. The hemoglobin is binded to oxygen in the form of oxyhemoglobin. The oxyhemoglobin basically releases the oxygen gas and takes in the CO2 gas to form carbaminohemoglobin, or the plasma part of the hemoglobin carries the maximum amount of CO2, which further carries the cellular respiration. So these three steps, they actually are involved in the respiration process, especially the breathing when we concern with the breathing process. Okay. Now coming to next slide, the respiratory surface. What is the respiratory surface? Respiratory surface is basically, it is a place where exchange of gases takes place. The gases are exchanged within the environment and the respiratory surface. The gas movement is done by diffusion. Very important. The gas movement is done by diffusion. So it is a surface at which exchange of gases CO2 and O2 occurs. It is known as what? Respiratory surface. Exchange of CO2 and O2 occurs at a respiratory surface. Okay. The surface must have enough area for gas exchange. This surface should have enough area for gaseous exchange, right? Okay. To meet out the energy requirements for different metabolic processes. Metabolic process. Okay. Gases are dissolved in water. Gases, they dissolve in water. So respiratory surface must be moist. Very important. The requirements of respiratory surface is that as gases, they are dissolved in water, it should be moist. Okay. So I'll write down the respiratory surface. It should be large. It should be moist and thin. The membranal lining should be thin so that diffusion can take place easily. Okay. So to increase the rate of diffusion, increases the rate of diffusion. The respiratory surfaces are usually thin and have large areas as well as adaptations to facilitate the exchange. Different organisms have different adaptations based on their size, body, covering, and habitat. Okay. Different animals, they have different respiratory surfaces. Okay, because depending upon their habitat, their energy requirements, their metabolic requirements, the respiratory surfaces are different. It should be permeable to respiratory gases. It should be permeable to respiratory gases. Okay, it should be permeable to respiratory gases. Then third point is it should be highly vascular. It should be highly vascular. In large number of blood capillary should be there. Okay. And the fourth point is it must be directly or indirectly in contact with the source of oxygen. It should be directly or indirectly in contact with oxygen, with O2. Okay. The respiratory surface should be large, it should be moist, it should be thin, so that to increase the rate of diffusion. Then it should be permeable to respiratory gases, it should be highly vascular, it should be directly or indirectly in contact with the oxygen. Understood? Now we are going to talk about the different types of respiratory structures. or the respiratory organs which are used for the exchange of gases in different groups of animals. Okay, so next slide. The respiratory mechanisms it operates, whether we talk about the terrestrial or aquatic. Although there are some problems which are related to exchange of gases in water living organisms as well as on land living organisms. Okay, the terrestrial organisms, if the organism is simple, means simpler animals, they use their skin or whole body ventilated by the movement and airflow. Since simpler animals, they use their skin or whole body ventilated by movement and airflow. Or if it is complex, then it can use internal respiratory system. Okay. If it is simple, then it will use skin or the whole body ventilated by the movement of airflow. And if it is complex, then it will use the internal respiratory system as well. Now, the more complex animals have lungs or the other organs similar to the lungs that are ventilated by breathing. Less complex organisms, they have tracheal system of tubes that distributes the oxygen throughout the body without blood. Very important. Internal respiratory system is further bifurcated. As the organism is less complex, then it will be having tracheal system, which is having numerous tubes which are fitted with this system, which will distribute the gas throughout the body without blood. And if it is more complex, then the animals have lungs or the other organs like lungs, which helps in the ventilation. Okay. Now, if the organism is more complex, then like birds and amphibians, they push air into their lungs. They push air into their lungs, birds and amphibians. While mammals, they pull air into their lungs. Very important. Birds and amphibians, they have to push air into their lungs. Okay. And mammals, they have to suck air. They have to pull air into the lungs. And less complex, they are ventilated by air movement. They are ventilated by air movement. Okay. The use of respiratory pigments in case of more complex organisms to help transport of oxygen through the blood, okay, is seen in more complex organisms as well as in aquatic organisms. All respiratory organs must be ventilated. Water or air must move through them so that to make the area moist. Okay, moist, thin, and folded tissue make up the respiratory organs. In case of aquatic or water living organisms, gills are ventilated when water moves over them. Fish have their blood flowing in the opposite direction of the water to make gas exchange more efficient. Very, very important. Okay. In case of fishes, the blood flows in the direction opposite to the direction of flow of water to make gas exchange more efficient. Okay. This is about terrestrial and water living organisms, that how they cope up in breathing process. Okay. Now, what are the problems of organisms living in water while breathing? Water breathing animals face the following problems in ventilating their respiratory surface, that is gills. Like, water contains very much less amount of dissolved oxygen. Problems for aquatic breathers. First, less amount of oxygen, less O2. Okay, as they have less amount of O2 because dissolved oxygen is very less. Second, oxygen diffuses through water very slowly than through air. Rate of diffusion of oxygen. Rate of diffusion is slow in comparison to terrestrial or aerial breathers. So first is that dissolved oxygen, amount of dissolved oxygen is less. Second is the rate of diffusion is slow in comparison to the terrestrial breathers or water breathers. Okay. Now, the water breathers like fishes with the use of gills, they have to force more amount of, therefore a large quantity of water is required to be passes over the gills to fulfill the oxygen. Okay. Third is water is absorbed 800 times denser than air so that the fish has make a great muscular effort to maintain water flow. Very, very, very important. The fishes, they need large quantity of water. This large of quantity of water basically passes over the gills to fulfill the oxygen. Okay, and water absorbs is 800 times denser than air. Oxygen is absorbed in water 800 times denser than air. That is why the fishes, they have to make great muscular effort to maintain water flow. Now, water is more denser than air, and that is why more muscular effort is done, okay, by fishes. During high temperatures, at high temperature, an animal needs more supply of oxygen because a rise in temperature increases their metabolic rate, but less oxygen is available to them in warmer water holds less oxygen. Okay, so temperature variation, warmer water rate of diffusion is slow. In warmer water, rate of diffusion of oxygen is slow. That is why the organisms which are living in, in benthic zone or in deep sea water, they have to come outside on the water surface to breathe good amount of oxygen, because warmer water means the temperature variations, warmer water rate of diffusion of oxygen is slow. Okay, so these are the problems which are related to the aquatic breathers or water breathers. There are some problems for air breathing as well. Okay, land animals for breathing air face following difficulties. First, they have to protect their respiratory surface from drying out. Very, very, very important. So they should have mucus glands. Problems for terrestrial. Okay, first they have to keep their respiratory organs moist. Okay, they have to basically prevent the respiratory organs from drying out. Respiratory surface must be kept moist. Okay, they lose their precious water through evaporation from their respiratory surface. The loss of water is more. Loss of H2O decreases the rate of diffusion. But even then, but even then, more than aquatic breathers. Aquatic breathers. Okay, understood? So these are some common problems that, in case of land breathers, as the flow of air, that is wind, which causes evaporation of water, surface water, they have to keep surface water moist. Again, then that they have to, compensate by having either mucus glands, like in case of amphibians and all. Okay, so that they can make their skin moist. Okay, understood that these are the respiratory organs when mechanisms which work in different regions. Now we will talk about the respiratory organs like lower invertebrates like sponges, coelentrates, flatworms. They use entire body surface for respiration. Lower invertebrates like sponges, coelentrates, flatworms, they use entire body surface for respiration. Understood? Skin or cutaneous respiration is seen in earthworm, leeches, while nereis or sandworm also use parapodia, which are used for locomotion, but they use parapodia for respiration as well. Okay, so skin or cutaneous respiration is seen in earthworm and leeches, while nereis and sandworm they use parapodia, which are meant for locomotion, but they use for respiration as well. Trachea is used in insects like peripatus, cockroach, and centipede. Book lungs is used in spider and scorpia. Book gills they are used in king crab. Gills they are known as bronchial respiration, used in prawn, unio, sea star, and fish. Arthropods and mollusca they also use gills, but when they are in aquatic forms, the terrestrial forms they use lungs. So the lower invertebrates they use sponges, like sponges, coelentrates, and platforms. They use entire body surface, general body diffusion. Skin and cutaneous respiration is seen in earthworm, leeches, while nereis and sandworm they use parapodia, which are used for locomotion, but they use for respiration as well. Trachea in insects like peripatus, cockroach, and centipede they use trachea. Book lungs is seen in spider and scorpion. Book gills in king crab. Gills also known as the respiration which takes place through gills, also known as bronchial respiration. It is seen in prawn, unio, sea star, and fish. Arthropods and mollusks, they have two forms. Aquatic forms they use gills, and terrestrial forms they use lungs. Understood? Now, there is something more. Protozoans, when we talk about protozoans like amoeba, paramecium, they also use plasma membrane, as you know. Okay. When we talk about sponges, also mentions cells, plasma membrane, simple body diffusion. Cnidarians, body surface. Okay. Platyhelminthes, when they are free living, like planaria, they use body surface, but when they are parasites, no exchange of gases takes place in parasites. So please, I will mention here in case of platyhelminthes, okay, platforms, if they are parasitic, no exchange of gases takes place. No exchange of gases takes place in case of parasitic platforms. Free living platforms, they use body surface. Escalamenthes, when they are free living, they use body surface. If they are parasitic, then again, no exchange of gases in case of escalamenthes or roundworms. Annelids, like earthworm, use skin. Cutaneous respiration is seen in case of annelids. Okay. Orthopods, I have already mentioned. Mollusk, I have already mentioned. Like mollusk, aquatic forms like unio, okay, they use gills, and pila, they use gills as well as lungs. Okay, so I'll write here unio to tinidia. Tinidia means analogy to gills, and pila, sorry, pila, it is having one tinidia, that is gills, and one lung. Okay, the different organisms they have different respiratory organs to for the exchange of gases. Echinoderm starfish they use dermal branchiae or tube feed system. I'll write here echinoderms. They use dermal branchiae or tube feed system for respiration. Okay. Hemichordata, melanoglossus use pharyngeal wall. Hemichordata like melanoglossus, glossus use pharyngeal wall. Okay. Chordates, Urochordata, herdmania use pharyngeal wall. Urochordata, herdmania use pharyngeal wall. Sorry, right? Is it understood? Yeah. Second is cephalochordata, branchiostoma as example, use pharyngeal wall. Cephalochordata, branchiostoma also uses pharyngeal wall. Okay. Then vertebrate, cyclostomes, fish use gills, amphibians uses skin, lungs, buccopharyngeal lining, reptiles, birds and mammals use lungs. Okay. So in vertebrates, cyclostomes, fish use gills, amphibians uses skin, lungs, and buccopharyngeal lining. Very important. Buccopharyngeal lining. Okay, is it understood? These are different, respiratory organs we are talking about. Now we are going to discuss about breathing and respiration, the difference between breathing and respiration. Breathing. Breathing is a physical process. It is a physical process, it is a mechanical process. Respiration is a biochemical process. Okay. Breathing involves the process of inhaling and exhaling the air in and out of lungs, while breathing oxygen is inhaled and carbon dioxide is exhaled. Breathing involves the process of inhaling, taking in, and exhaling, taking out the air in and out of lungs, while breathing oxygen is inhaled and CO2 is exhaled. Respiration is the process of breaking down of the glucose, which is a biochemical process, to produce energy, which is used by cells to carry out different cellular functions or different metabolic functions. So breathing is a physical or a mechanical process, while respiration is a biochemical process. Respiration involves, breakdown of food substrate in the presence of oxygen to provide energy in the form of ATP. And this energy in the form of ATP is basically utilized by different metabolic processes. Breathing takes place at the level of lungs. Okay, breathing takes place in the lungs, while respiration is cellular. It takes place in the cells. Very important. Breathing takes place in the lungs, while respiration takes place at the cellular level, mean at the level of cells, at the level of tissue. Breathing is a physical voluntary process. Breathing is a physical process and it is a voluntary process. Okay, somewhat it is voluntary, not it is completely voluntary. Okay, breathing is a physical and voluntary process. You can control the rate of airflow, inflow and outflow. Okay, up to a partial means. So breathing is a physical process and it is a voluntary process. Respiration is a chemical and involuntary process. Respiration is a chemical and involuntary process. Breathing is a physical and voluntary process. No energy is produced during this process. During breathing, no production of energy is seen. In case of respiration, energy is released in the form of ATP. So during breathing, no energy is produced during this process, while respiration, energy is released in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Breathing is extracellular. It occurs outside the cells. Breathing is extracellular and it occurs outside the cells. While respiration is intracellular as it occurs inside the cells. Okay. Breathing doesn't involve any enzymatic activity that is why it is not biochemical. No enzymatic activity is seen in breathing. No enzyme are used during this process. So there is no breakdown. No enzyme means no breakdown. Okay. That is why the term breathing is given for both living and non-living surfaces. Okay. Breathing takes place through respiratory organs like lungs, nose. Okay. Respiration, large number of enzymes are used during this process. It is a biochemical process. It involves enzymatic breakdown, enzymatic conversions, breakdown of complex substrates to form ATP. Okay. Respiration takes place in the cell and cell organelles like mitochondria, while breathing takes place at the respiratory level, at the level of respiratory organs. Respiration takes place inside the cell at the level of cellular organelles level like mitochondria. So we will be talking about human respiratory system in detail in the coming turn, in the coming video. Till then, bye bye, take care, stay safe, stay healthy, stay at home. Bye bye.